Well, as two processes unfold at the same time, these are the ANC NEC meeting and the parliamentary debate into the Phala Phala report. What are the possible outcomes for President Cyril Ramaphosa? Two of his predecessors, Thabo Mbeki and Jacob Zuma, were all recalled by their party before any parliamentary process could take place. Joining me to discuss this is political analyst Dr Zamo Mbandlwa. Dr. Mbandlwa, thank you so much for your time and thank you for joining us this morning. I mean, since the release of those findings on Wednesday, much through Thursday and Friday, we've been seeing allies of the president really trying to rally around him and, of course, a scramble to contain this fallout of the Section 89 panel report. But, I mean, in reality, what options are actually still available to the president at this point?
Good morning, Togozo, and good morning to the viewers at home. Thank you for inviting me. Togozo, you are raising a very important point. The ANC is in a very difficult situation, particularly this weekend, because the parliamentary sitting is next week, Tuesday. But I would like to touch base on three things that are very important for the ANC at this point. Number one, this meeting is in a very difficult situation because they will have to actually look into the ANC dynamics within the ANC members and ANC leaders in the NEC, because they have different perspectives and different views within the NEC of the ANC going to the national conference, which will take place in 2 weeks' time. So they'll have to consider all those dynamics before they take a decision about the president or advising the president. And either decision, whether they say the president must continue or the president must resign, that particular decision will have a dire impact in the population and also to the membership of the ANC. Secondly, is the impact that the decision will have in the general support of people to the ANC or the general public. And lastly, this will have an impact also to the parliamentary proceeding that will take place on Tuesday, because the ANC will not want to see the president being removed through the impeachment process. So the ANC rather find a way to manage issues so that they will actually avoid the embarrassment and the disappointment. Because remember, the ANC will have to protect its leader regardless, and they will have to advise the leader accordingly. So whatever that is happening now will have an impact in the ANC, and whatever decision that they are taking will have an impact to the ANC at large and also to the general support the ANC have in publicly.
It's so interesting, Dr. Mbandlwa, how the conversation and the debate has turned and started to focus on, you know, the optics of Phala Phala, and not so much on the reasoning contained in the report when it comes to what the panel actually said. You know, we had former public protector Thuli Madonsela come onto this very platform and draw variance between a corrupt leader and an ethically ambiguous leader. And I wonder if that's a similar debate that's going to take place tomorrow when the ANC NEC meets, this idea that he hasn't been charged with any sort of corruption charges, yet we have a scathing report that says he may have seriously violated some of the country's laws and that he may have committed a serious misconduct.
I like your point, Togozo, because in the public domain, people are mainly focused on the recommendation that has been made by the panel. They did not read the entire document, which actually gives effect to the recommendations that are being made. First and foremost, the panel looked into 4 areas whereby they said charge number 1 was on the basis of the president admitting in the conference that took place of the ANC in Limpopo, where he said he have a business, he's a farmer. And the panel clearly indicated that this is an admission because the constitution do not allow the sitting president, the cabinet ministers and the deputy ministers to be involved in business or in any other paid work. So they focus on that. And secondly, they looked into 4 issues, by the way. And the second issue that they looked at is the violation of rights of the president to instruct the person who is in charge of the protection of the president instead of actually reporting the matter to the directorate of the SAPS. And also the report goes further to say at this point, before the report was concluded, there was no court case which has been reported in relation to the Phala Phala. So it simply means that there's no case number that can be referred to. And secondly, the report also speaks about the letter that was written by the governor to the South African Reserve, to the South African Revenue Services, where they actually wanted to find some information in relation to how the money entered into the country, whether the proper processes were followed or not. So if you look at the comments that has been made, you can tell that they are not only focusing on one aspect, which is corruption and money laundering, but they looked into a number of areas where they feel that the president may have an opportunity to answer, and then he have to answer on the basis of the findings that they have made.
Yeah. Well, Zamo, you know, we heard from the presidential spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya, this week that the president was considering options and that he would be balancing, of course, the best interests of the country in that evaluation. But we know that the ANC NEC is meeting tomorrow, and I'd imagine that, you know, of considerable importance within the organization is this issue of stability and the issue of continuity. You know, I mentioned in my introduction that Ramaphosa's predecessors, Thabo Mbeki, former President Jacob Zuma, were recalled from the union buildings. And so this sort of disruptive entrance and exit of presidents coming from Luthuli House is likely to be, you know, a point of contention when the NEC meets tomorrow, and something that they will probably consider quite seriously, given the fact that they are weeks away as well from their national elective conference.
Yeah, thanks, Thabo. You see, it's now a precedent in the ANC that when people do not agree with the elected president in a national conference, become permanent enemies. They always regroup. So the people that did not support the current president are always fighting against the president. They will always find an alternative candidate for them to lead the ANC. But what is more interesting is when I was listening to the comments made by NEC members yesterday and also this morning, they are not actually saying the president will not resign or they will not advise the president to resign. But what they are saying is they are concerned about the credibility of the leader that will have to take over. So that alone should give us an indication that anything is possible, because the fact that they are not actually denying the fact that the public is expecting or anticipating that the president will resign based on what has happened, particularly for him not attending the special NEC meeting that was called, he is actually consulting, and we do not know the outcomes of his consultation. So anything is possible. So now the fact that the NEC members themselves actually think that or assume that the president will resign, and they do not know who is the credible candidate or who will lead the ANC and lead the country. So it becomes very problematic. Now again, the NEC of the ANC means that they do not have a succession plan. So if there was a succession plan and if they have a deputy president, then they do not trust. So it says something about the ANC.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Mbandlwa. We are going to have to leave it there. That's political analyst Dr. Zamo Mbandlwa helping us to unpack or at least cast our eyes to tomorrow's meeting. Let's take